I want to say good morning. It's morning for me. Welcome back to the Dental Hygiene Basics podcast. My name is Dana. I am your host, and I'm so excited to be here bright and early in the morning because I felt inspired. And so I'm here chilling, sweatpants, hair tied, chilling with no makeup on, a little bit of Drake action this morning because I have something I want to talk to you about. And a student reached out to me and they said, I just feel like when I'm studying, it just feels like it never gets less, right? It's just, I write all these notes, I have all these notes, and I just keep coming back and looking at them. And am I studying the right thing? How do I know if I'm on the right track, right? And I think a lot of students feel this way. And I think it makes perfect sense because you take all of these notes and you come back and you sit down to review them. And you wonder, is it ever going to get any shorter, right? Do these notes ever become easier to understand? I really want to talk to you guys about this because I think it's something that a lot of really smart, strategic students do naturally. Students who have really tackled and understand ways to study effectively, but that is not most students. Most students do not know how to study effectively. And I get these questions all the time. So excited to talk about it with you guys today. All right. So when you first start learning a topic, your brain needs the big picture. You need context, you need explanations. You have to see all the pieces connect and how they fit together, right? And at this stage, it's completely normal for your notes to be really long and detailed. I think about when you open your textbook, right? Your textbook is designed to teach you every little piece of the information because if it leaves anything out, your brain may fill in the dots with something incorrect, or it may feel confused and not understand it. So when you start reading through the textbook chapters, you're like, wow, these textbook chapters are long. There's so much information in here. This is super overwhelming, right? They have to give you all of the words necessary to explain the concept, right? And that is important when you first start learning something because otherwise you won't understand it. You won't be able to see the big picture. So let's take an example of oral pathology. Let's talk about Epstein-Barr virus. Okay. Epstein-Barr virus is human herpes virus 4. So right off the bat, you have to recognize that a virus causes this Epstein-Barr virus, right? And it has two names. It's called human herpes virus 4, and it's also called Epstein-Barr virus. Okay. And so when they explain Epstein-Barr virus, they may say something like, Epstein-Barr virus causes mononucleosis. Signs of mono include fever, fatigue, lymphadenopathy, which is swollen lymph nodes, and petechiae on the palate. Epstein-Barr is associated with oral hairy leukoplakia, which typically appears on the lateral border of the tongue. It's more commonly seen in patients who are immunosuppressed, especially patients with HIV/AIDS. Well, let's just imagine that's a whole paragraph in the textbook. And let's imagine when your teacher is up in front of the class teaching, they're going to say all of that information. When you look at it, you're like, that's a lot of information I have to wrap my brain around. It's not that it's hard. It's just that you are going to be responsible for knowing all of that information. Now, there are some concepts that are harder, right? And they may take a little bit more time to really get down to the brunt of what are they actually trying to say. But in this case, it's not that the material is specifically hard. It's a significant amount of information in one little paragraph, right? So these notes are longer. And when you first start taking notes and you first start reading through the textbook, it's okay that you need to see the whole story to make sense of how all of these things are connected and how they may show up in a specific patient. So remember, when you start studying, the first thing you should do is before you go to class, just read through the chapters, okay? Fast and furious. You don't have to remember everything that you read. Read the intro to the chapter, read the summary to the chapter, look at all the pictures, read the captions under the pictures, right? You're just trying to expose yourself to the information. What are we learning today in class? When you go into class, listen to your teacher, take notes, ask questions, be engaged. If you do not pay attention in class, you are doing yourself a huge disservice because guess what you're going to have to do now? You're going to have to teach yourself the material later. Even if you just go into class and you just listen, that is your second exposure. And that's going to really, really help. Okay. Now, after you leave class, whether it's right away, if it's right away, that's ideal. But even if it's later that evening, go back through and do a quick review of everything that they talked about in class that day. Okay. That's your third exposure. What you're going to see is from there, you just come back to it and you start reviewing it a little bit at a time. You can start spacing it out. Maybe you look at it that day, the next day, and then maybe you're going to look at it 2 days later than that, right? And then you're going to do 3 days later than that. What some people think is I should be able to just look at it and know it, right? I read the book, I read my notes, I studied the PowerPoint, I should know it now, right? Exposure does not mean that you know something. And just because you keep rereading your notes over and over again does not mean that you know it. So, what a lot of students do is they sit in class, they take these copious notes, right? Maybe they come back after and they're filling in even more notes. And what do you end up with? You end up with this huge packet of notes. That's okay because what you're doing is you are building the big picture for yourself to understand it. But once you've reviewed that information multiple times, something starts to happen. Your brain will naturally start to consolidate the information. You don't need the full explanation anymore because your brain knows the story behind it. So you don't need every single word and every single sentence still there spelling out exactly what's going on. So at this point, your notes should start turning more into short triggers that will help trigger your memory as to what it is that you're learning. So instead of rewriting all of your notes out again, right? You need to start connecting the dots in shorter, more concise pathways. Writing is an incredible way to help build your memory, right? That's a method of active recall. But if you're just sitting there writing out the whole textbook, right, over and over and over again, it's going to take you forever and you're going to get overwhelmed. So now we need to start consolidating that information. The way that that might look is you just condense it. Instead of writing out that whole long paragraph, you write human herpes virus 4 in parentheses, Epstein-Barr virus. Causes mono, fever, fatigue, swollen lymph nodes, petechiae. Also causes oral hairy leukoplakia, lateral border of the tongue. Common in HIV/AIDS patients, immunosuppressed patients. Okay, when I say that, that feels way less overwhelming to you, right? But you have to start with that initial connection. And I think people read through the textbook and they think it's just so much information. As you're going through it, look for the most important parts, right? You just need to know, how does it show up? What does it present? So you're going to start consolidating, making those things shorter and shorter and shorter. Where your notes can get eventually, you just have human herpes virus 4, Epstein-Barr virus, mono, oral hairy leukoplakia, HIV/AIDS, immunosuppressed patients. Because you're going to already know the symptoms because you've come back and you've looked at it so many times, right? And beyond just looking at it and reading your notes over and over again, you have to engage with your notes, okay? So the way that you engage with your notes is create fill in the blank exercises from your notes. You already wrote out a bunch of information. So now let's say, okay, human herpes virus 4, then put a line next to it. And you need to write that is the Epstein-Barr virus, right? So you're going to create your notes while you're studying them, but you're creating a fill in the blank document while you're studying your notes, right? So you're writing it again. And now you're giving yourself an active recall plan that you can come back and you can study those notes again and fill in the blanks and start challenging your memory, okay? Now your notes begin acting like memory cues. They're no longer full explanations that take hours to read, right? And you're not even holding on to them. Okay. Sometimes it is also really helpful to add in a quick memory trick. So for me, I remember Epstein Barr. Barr has 4 letters. Mono has 4 letters. Okay. Or mono is also referred to as the kissing disease because it's highly infectious in saliva. So you could remember if you go to the bar and you meet a stranger and you start kissing them, you could end up with mono, right? All right. So the key that I want you students to understand is that your notes should shrink as your knowledge grows. I usually explain this when I'm helping students get ready for the national board exams because they will go through and they're like, oh my gosh, there's just so much information. And you're right. There is so much information that you have to know. But the thing is, when you start studying a chapter and you write your notes, your goal is to recognize what do you know and what do you not know. You need to spend more time on the things that you don't know. So pull that to a review sheet, right? You're like, farm, okay, here's all the drugs I do not feel comfortable with. And then you're going to come back and review it every so often. You're going to challenge your memory, right? You'll do memory tricks, flashcards, fill in the blank exercises, writing things out by memory, whatever that looks like until you recognize, okay, I'm starting to really know this material. Then you need to take it off of your review sheet, right? Your review sheet should get smaller and smaller and smaller as the exam gets closer. Because if you have the same level of review, what you're doing is you're just coming back looking at the same information that your brain already knows. And our brain likes to gloss over. If we are reading something that we already know, your brain doesn't engage with it anymore. So we need to weed out all the stuff we already know, and we need to spend the time focusing on the things we don't know or that need more attention, like charts and graphs and pictures and things that we know are going to be tested on the exam. Okay. When you're preparing for an exam, especially a huge exam like the national boards, recall is the skill that you need. Remember, your brain's a file cabinet. We have to be able to reach in and pull out the files, as many of them as possible. You're not going to remember everything. That's just life, right? Our brains can't store every single thing, but we need enough so that you can pull that information out quickly when you need it. And that's where that repetition and active recall are going to strengthen that part of your brain. So as you're moving through your studying, it's okay to let your notes evolve. They don't have to be the same notes that you start with. Condense them, make them shorter, get to just the important information. Once you understand the concept, and imagine that you could say it to somebody else. You're like, okay, Epstein-Barr virus, this, and this. If you can say it to someone else, you are on the right track. And then condense it down. How do I explain this in the most simple way possible? Right? That is where your notes should finish up. And then once you've learned that, you've memorized that, and you're good, right? You don't have to keep coming back to it and looking at it 1,000 times once it's in your brain. You just have to review it every so often. All right, everyone. Best of luck on your exams, board exams, wherever you're at in this season of your dental hygiene education. As always, these tips are good no matter where you're at. So thank you so much for listening. If you are struggling at all in dental hygiene school, you can head down to the show notes, find our free link for our dental hygiene hurdle. It's just a quick little step-by-step to help you overcome those really difficult moments in dental hygiene school. Would love for you guys to download that, read it. If you have questions, reach out to us. It's also going to add you to our newsletter list where you're going to get regular updates, tips, tricks, things like this, just to help you be successful and go on to get your license. That's what we need to, right? Get to graduation, get your license. Okay, everyone. Thank you again. Have an amazing day. Best of luck on your journey. Future registered dental hygienist.